Anton, I was looking at your guys' website, and it says that you guys were on Not the Bee.
Yeah, we've worked with them a little bit. They wrote an article about us. So yeah, we've been featured in their publications, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Like, did it kind of like boost sales, or like did you guys see like more traffic, or was it just like a really cool opportunity
Yeah, a
overall?
little bit of both. I mean, it was great to get the exposure, and people definitely bought some coffee because of it. But yeah, it was just kind of cool opportunity to get featured in there.
Yeah, for sure. We love the Babylon Bee. And
Mhm.
Not the Bee is also fun too. Um,
I think not the bee is
but
more fun because a lot of times they'll bring in stuff that sounds like it should be on the bee, but it's not.
Yeah, their
yeah,
job is
no,
competing
it's
with
true.
reality, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing with Babylon Bee is that I know this is way off topic, but with the Babylon Bee, like all the headlines that are satire, like they come true. Like it's so scary. Um, so I feel like they could not the Bee and Babylon Bee could just merge into one thing at
Exactly
some
right.
point. Right. Um, but Anton, we're super happy to have you here talking about 7 weeks coffee. And so we just kind of want to dive on in and just tell us about you. Tell us about how you came up with the idea to start a coffee brand like this. And we'll just kind of probe you and ask some questions along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Open book. Happy to share. And thank you so much for having me on and chatting with me today. I really appreciate it. But yeah, so 7 Weeks Coffee, pro-life coffee company with the simple mission, have a tangible impact supporting life-saving services at pregnancy care centers. We do that by donating 10% of every sale. So we've been able to raise right now over $100,000 for pregnancy centers across the country, supporting over 500 life-affirming centers. So we sell coffee and save lives. It's as simple as that.
Nice. Love it.
Mhm.
But take us back though a little bit. What what made you think to yourself, I gotta start a pro-life coffee company? And
Yeah.
like what did that look like for you? Like just kind of
It's
walk us through that in a little bit of detail.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't have any like specific background in coffee, and not outside of just being a fan of coffee and enjoying it. But I've always been very entrepreneurial, and I've always wanted to get involved with the pro life movement and also just the political movement. My background is political fundraising, so I've worked for raising money for some amazing candidates and nonprofits and things of that nature. Kind of being a part of the conservative ideation, agenda, things of that nature, and then really trying to, elect people who support biblical and conservative values. So all that I think kind of stemmed to this 7 Weeks Coffee, which is an idea I had one day, trying to see, if there's, opportunities to get involved in the pro-life movement. So one day I was like, oh, what about, coffee? It's a great way to tell a mission, share a story. We got Black Rifle Coffee, who's a really big conservative coffee on the right. And then I was like, well, there has to be a pro-life coffee, right? The pro-lifers, there's, millions of them across the nation, one of the most passionate voting issue in the country. People care deeply about this issue. There's got to be a big pro-life coffee. All I did is type it into Google, pro-life coffee, and nothing came up. And that was the light bulb, God put it in front of us moment, and is like, I am going to start this. I remember calling my wife like, hey, I have this idea for our pro-life coffee company. What do you think? And this is 2 weeks after we got married. So she's like, what do I think? Maybe we're just going to marry life here. Like, maybe we should not be starting a company. And I'm like, no, this is a great idea. It makes perfect sense in my mind. And I do credit her because she says, okay, when is a baby the size of a coffee bean? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I don't know. And I look it up. At 7 weeks, a baby is the size of a coffee bean. The same time a heartbeat is detectable on their ultrasound. So that was like our name right away. 7 Weeks Coffee, have a tangible impact supporting life-saving services at pregnancy care centers who offer ultrasound services. That's one of the main things centers offer. So kind of the name tied us right into the mission from the get-go. And that was September, I think, of 21. And we launched in November of 2021. So we're, a year and a half in right now.
Wow. So, let me go ahead and back you up a little bit. So
Yeah.
you come to your wife, which one, you have an amazing wife that supports you and helps out that mission. I think that's awesome. But so like you have the idea to start this coffee company.
Mhm.
Now, what were some of the steps in that? Like, did you feel like, okay, if I invest, X, Y amount of money, like, will I actually be able to make a profit? Will people actually be interested in this? When you guys kind of did your first initial launch, like, what was your feeling going into that?
It's funny. I think you don't realize how big something can get until you start. I think I think it's easy to dream big once in a while, but in like reality, I was like, this would be great if we sold some coffee and we raised money for our local pregnancy center, And that was the
Yeah.
extent of it. It's like, yeah, wouldn't it be great to sell some coffee and just, donate it back to our local center? It wasn't like this is going to become my full-time job. This is going to be like, a growing sizable company one day. It's like, yeah, let's just donate, sell coffee and it'll be a cool donation model to do it. But I think in the back of my head, I realized like there's opportunity for this to grow. And I think as things started to take off and you see like more and more people like catch on, it's like, wow, this could be a lot bigger than I originally thought. And it just shows, I think, the need in the conservative space to have, companies that represent our values, those tens of millions and, of Americans who care about the pro-life issue or sick of giving their dollars to companies that don't align with them. And there's very little alternatives. So I think when you tried us being a perfect match for those consumers, it really, accelerated the growth and really shows, the opportunity that presents itself for us.
Well, yeah, for sure. Well, let's kind of jump into that.
Yeah.
Sorry, my something just happened on my end. My screens decided they're going to go blank. I can still hear you though, but I can now see you. So let's go ahead and just jump into this because you talked a little bit about other coffee companies, and I think the first one that people think of is, something like Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
They're everywhere. Now I'm going to kind of get into their ideology, but also actually into the quality of the coffee. Because on your guys' website, you talk a little bit about the quality. And one of the things you guys say on there, which I think is interesting, is that it is pesticide and mold free. Can you kind of talk about why that's important and why that might set you guys apart from places like Starbucks or even other non-political, coffee companies?
I love talking about this. It's one of the coolest parts about our company. And let me start it off with this. It's really important when we're creating brands and advocating for issues and trying to really create a parallel economy. Success can only happen if we have excellence in mission and excellence in product. Meaning we can have a big heart, have a great mission. I think we don't lack for that. We lack on the product. We have to compete with our quality of our products, with the pricing of our products. And for us, it was like we need to serve very good coffee. So it took some research, took some diligence to work with some of the best roasters in the country, and we want to do that because we want to serve a good product. By nature, that means we're going to have coffee that's pesticide free, mold free. Direct trade, and all of that is very uncommon. Something like Starbucks easily could have pesticides, mold in it. 80% of all coffee, so think about that, 80% of all coffee has mold in it. Coffee is the second largest commodity in the world traded outside of oil. So you think of global oil, then you think what's next? Coffee is actually, and it's such a huge industry, and it has a lot of issues. It has a lot of issues with its sourcing and products, pesticides, mold, even other terrible things that can get thrown into coffee, dirt and like literal, waste also can be caught up in the coffee processing. So we source a very ethical and clean product. And the ethical side is another thing we like to highlight: direct trade. So not only are we providing a super clean product with organically farmed, but we're directly working with the local farmers. So my roaster is our importer. He directly knows where this coffee is coming from. He has personal relationships with the producers of this coffee. This means the money actually ends up in the hands of the farmers, not in a coffee brokerage where the people who are actually farming the coffee are getting paid, pennies on the dollar for it. So all that is really important in our story. And I think that's what's, kind of sets us apart is like, hey, we have this awesome mission, to support pregnancy centers, but we're going to provide a world-class product. And my favorite review, Jordan, is when people say, I bought your coffee because I like the cause. I wanted to support the cause. I'm coming back to buy it again because I also love the coffee. And that's the kind of chord we're trying to strike.
Right. I think you've hit on a very important point where we're not just, people that want a company that has good morals. Like, we actually want a good product with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I've struggled with conservative brands, is
Yeah.
that I'm like, I really want to support you, but this product is slightly overpriced and the product's not that
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
Now, with that being said, though, I would understand your guys' prices where it's like, okay, if you're, and I don't know much about coffee, so you're going to have to help me a little bit here. But you guys are going through a lot more work to make sure that things are organically farmed, that make
Hmm.
sure that the workers are getting that money. And so I imagine that because it's not being mass produced the same way,
Hmm.
as a company like
Hmm.
Starbucks or Folgers or whatever, um, that it might end up costing a little bit more to make that product. Um, so and Connor, just kind of jump in here if you've got something. I'm just kind of on a roll. um, but I kind of wanted to talk a little bit too about how you started that process of even finding a farmer, right? Even like getting
Hmm.
into that, because you said you weren't even in the coffee business,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
this
I
is
knew
kind of an
nothing about
idea.
this. I truly was learning as I was going. It really was kind of God's providence. I ended up just looking for different, coffee suppliers and roasters and things of that nature. And I had a recommendation through a friend, and literally gave them a cold call, and they've been our coffee roaster since. And they have all these relationships with the farmers, so that's why we can say this is a direct trade coffee. So there's no middleman. So yeah, it's awesome that we ended up getting to work with an amazing roaster, and we'll continue to have that direct trade coffee for our company, because I've learned so much about that and how important that is to talk about it. It's a way we can advocate for it. And also it really helps the quality of our coffee. It is maybe a little more premium price, but you're getting such a good product for the value of it. It's competitive,
Mhm.
and it's truly a better cup of coffee than anything most people have had.
Yeah. No, I agree. I've had y'all's coffee,
Yeah,
and I
good.
really liked it. Yeah, it
Good.
was really, really good. And so definitely would be purchasing it again. Connor, you got anything?
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that I immediately appreciated is that you didn't sacrifice one cause for another.
Hmm.
So you came into this with the idea of wanting to help pregnancy centers,
Hmm.
and in order to do that, you didn't skimp out and go buy a mass produced coffee bean that's sourced from all over the place like
Hmm.
Starbucks. One of the reasons that their coffee doesn't taste so great is because they'll use under ripened and over ripened beans along with ripe beans, and then they over roast them to make sure they all taste the same,
Yeah.
and you just end up with this burnt coffee taste. So the fact that you followed it from beginning to end, from where the beans are originally farmed to how they get to people's
Yeah.
coffee cups, I think is fantastic. It certainly would have been a detriment, I think, to the cause if you had been like, yeah, we're here to support the pregnancy centers, but we're going to use basically these slave farms where they're getting pennies on the dollar
Hmm.
and they're
Yeah,
getting
and that's
shorted.
so important. That's so important. It's like I soon realized, like, wait, we need to be pro abundant life. Like, we care about the baby in the womb, to the for us, the farmers who are growing our coffee. And now we have full transparency over our supply chain thing. We think that's very unique and positions us
Mhm.
really
Mm.
strategically in the market. Is like, yes, we have full transparency into our supply chain. We know exactly the farmers that we get to work with, and directly is benefit. This is a huge benefit to them that we get to sell their coffee, because it's we're buying from them at a fair price, 300 times fair trade. So fair trade is kind of like this wash standard of like, yes, fair trade is like, this is a poverty level is considered fair trade for a lot of this coffee importing. But for us, we're paying livable wages, like a fair price for the product,
Mhm.
not a fair trade requirement, but a true price that's gives them value, and is valuable to us. So
Do you have
very
any
important.
examples
Yeah.
of what like some farmers can get from, we'll say, like really large distributors versus what you guys are
Yeah,
paying?
so this is exactly how it works. So, for example, like a going quality fair, sorry, direct trade price maybe is like 350 a pound for green
Hmm.
coffee. That's like a good price. But the issue is not the price per pound. So, I could go pay 350 a pound to a generic coffee importer and brokerage. Well, that brokerage I'm giving $3.50 a pound for. They're paying the farmers, maybe $1 a pound for that coffee. So it's the same cost to me, but the farmer never gets to work with me directly. The producers of those farms never get to work with us directly. So they're getting pennies on the dollar for their coffee. And so with direct trade, it's circumnavigating any brokerages for coffee, and we're working directly through the farmer. We'd love to give the $3.50 directly to the farmer and pay them directly, so they get to keep the money for us. So these brokerages are kind of holds these farmers back, and they don't have access to, consumers of their products. So that's really how it happens and how farmers can get undercut in the industry.
Okay. What areas are you guys sourcing those beans from?
Right now, we're working exclusively with an Ethiopian coffee roaster and importer. So Ethiopia, the home of coffee, they're direct trade. So they go there like every year for the last 20 years. It's really cool. This summer, we're really excited to transition to a new coffee supplier. We're going to have direct trade coffees from actually all over now. We're not just going to have Ethiopia, but we're going to have Haitian coffee, Dominican coffee, Honduras, Brazil. Same ethical sourcing, direct trade sourcing, but we're opening this up with a new roaster. Just we're gonna have a lot of new varieties of products, which we're really excited for.
That's really awesome. Do you guys think your company will ever go out to any of those locations to meet the farmers?
That's a good question. I think down the road, I'd love to. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to, as we kind of build connections with our roaster and stuff like that. Like it'd be great to go see the farmers who we're buying coffee from, because we'll be a significant buyer in some of these, economies with the amount of coffee we're selling. And it's awesome that we get to know we're helping them directly. Mm-hmm.
I wonder, I have to wonder like what the thoughts would be. So from point A, from the farmer's point of view, what their coffee beans are going towards here in the States, to helping women's pregnancy centers, and how the women might feel about, how you're also supplying basically jobs and work and livable wages for these farmers. So that's a really neat ecosystem. I kind of have to wonder how they would react to that. Now,
yeah, that'd be cool to do like maybe like a story or documentary one day, like kind of from literal farm to pregnancy center where we get to support because of this coffee and the sale of it. Yeah, I think it'd be awesome to highlight that. And it's hard to. It's also educating. Not a lot of people know about just coffee sourcing. Like I didn't know, most people wouldn't even think like, yeah, the coffee I'm buying at a grocery store is, normal coffee and it's sourced, probably ethically, which unfortunately it's not. If your coffee is not saying direct trade sourced, it's, most likely not a super ethical sourcing unless there's other transparent ways to know what the farmers are getting paid. That's what it comes down to, is like, hey, are farmers getting paid a fair price for their coffee?
So can I interject and ask a question? And this will be kind of an ignorant question, perhaps. But when a company says that it's fair trade, is that just more like a buzzword, like the same as like people saying that something is clean or organic? Like does fair trade actually mean something good?
That's a buzzword. That's like paying for a certification that doesn't actually necessarily help, because fair trade, like I said, is the fair trade price per pound is almost laughable. It's like a poverty standard. It's like $1 something. I would have to look it up. I don't want to quote it, but it's an underpriced amount for coffee. That still keeps farmers in no better off circumstance. So yeah, fair trade certified, I would not say is an ethical sourcing way for coffee, even though it's very common. Like I said, it's kind of buying the rubber stamp. And so the reverse of that is like us. We're not organically certified. We don't have an organic certification, but we know the farmers who are producing the coffee and they use organic practices. So it's organically farmed. It's like going to your local farmer's market. You're going to buy something from a local farmer. It's just probably just in some, blank packaging. You're not going to ask, is it, do you have a USDA organic certification? You probably don't, but how they practice their farming habits, and you're getting a really clean and good product. So it's kind of like, not being, disguising behind, certifications or stamps, and just really being honest with your practices, and including sourcing.
Right. No, and I think that's a great distinction to make, because you have people like me. Listen, I'm ignorant in a lot of areas. This is probably one of them, right? And so if I see something that says fair trade, like you see the words fair and you see the words trade, you're like, oh, it must be fair. And so you're like, you feel good about the product because you're like, oh, they're saying it's fair and that, people are getting their good wage. And so I can feel good about buying this product. But really what it is some kind of I'm going to use this loosely. It might not be the correct term, but more like virtue signaling a little bit
Yeah,
on the
it's kind of
company's
scam
end.
marketing. Yeah. And that's common. You know, it's outside of coffee, it's common. It's like going to a grocery store and looking at chicken and it says 100% natural or 100% chicken on it. It's like, oh, that must mean it's something different. Like, no, like
Yeah.
the FDA makes it, you're not allowed to sell chicken that's not only 100% chicken. Like, these are already like things that are already law, you know, with food standards. So it's like stating the obvious with a different language to it to try to make it sound differently. But the same thing with, you know, fair trade. Sounds good. You look into it more and how it's actually practiced, not as good.
Right, right.
Mhm.
And I guess part of the point that you're trying to make is that you shouldn't have to say that it's this way. Like it
Mhm.
should just be like if you get something from the farmer's market, that comes in that plain packaging, you probably don't
Yep.
have to like look for that verification. Like it's already you just kind of can tell that it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Unless the farmer is very, very sketchy. But that's another situation, I suppose. But um in regards so I have a couple of questions, and actually, it's not really a question. It's more of just a statement.
Mhm.
That you probably, when you're going through this process, you probably, I don't know if this is true. I'm going to imagine that it is, that you probably gained a respect for coffee that you didn't have before, and like how difficult it might be to actually make an ethical product, or how easy it is, and maybe wondering why more companies don't do that about doing direct trade and trying to
Mhm.
work directly with farmers.
Yeah, I've definitely learned a lot, and it's funny. I have become a coffee snob, so like every morning I like making my coffee with the pour over. I've learned about it. It's fun. It's been fun to like kind of get into this coffee hobby now, where I could talk about it, and I've learned a lot from my roaster and kind of learn the ins and outs of coffee roasting and kind of just generically how it works. I've never roasted coffee myself, but I've learned how it works and tasting it and kind of different profiles of coffee, and it's a really cool art. People get into wine and beer tasting, things like that in American culture. But coffee is very similar. And it's funny. I think, we're Americans are very snobby on like things they drink and like want to taste good. But coffee is like the mass consumed product that's usually of very poor quality in this country. Like your typical coffee
Mhm.
is Dunkin' Donuts at Starbucks. It's pretty bad coffee in terms of specialty grade coffee. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a cool learning experience for me. And, learning just on that and also the pro life side too, like getting involved in pro life side. But we can highlight that later. But yeah, it's been on both sides of the aisle, pro life and coffee side. I've learned a lot over the last year and a half.
Yeah, well, why don't we jump into that? Kind of just talk to us a little bit about the connections that you've made with this, especially with like pro-life organizations. The
Mhm.
things that you've learned. Like, just kind of talk us through that because that must be just a really cool experience overall.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, for us, it was, hey, let's sell coffee and raise money for our local center. And now we're up to over 500 centers that partner with us. We try to go to all the conferences every year where the centers meet and meet people face to face. I mean, I've met with, at least over 100, people, center directors and people who work at the pregnancy centers and just learning about what they do. So we'll go to all the awesome conferences. CareNet has a national conference, Heartbeat International, NIFLA. Those are kind of the main organizations where pregnancy centers gather. Love to meet with them, share them about a coffee, get them signed up with our partnership program, how we could support them. But you just learn about their needs and what they do. It's really amazing. And just it all the
Yeah,
more inspires me for what we're doing in raising money. It's such a worthy cause we're giving to. I can't stress that enough. They're literally saving lives. They're on the front lines of their local communities, literally helping protect, women in crisis and the unborn, and they are continually out of resources and always in need of funding. So for us, it's like this is a no-brainer. We want to continue to support them financially, through the sale of our coffee. So yeah, it's amazing what they do. People don't realize, what their local center does. I would advocate everyone to go visit your local center, just get involved at some level, go to their gala dinner, support them financially if you can, but just see what they do and how it, how they support, moms and the unborn.
yeah. There's one, I'm sure you know of them, Human Coalition.
Hmm.
We have one of those in Charlotte, and we got a chance to tour their clinic, and it's just really cool what they've done where it's such a warm and inviting environment for the moms, and like that takes a lot of resources, like that takes a lot of work. Like you
Hmm.
have the ultrasound machines, you have all those things that they have to have, and then also at least for this specific organization. So I guess I'm shouting out Human Coalition,
Yeah,
but
they're awesome.
also yeah, they're really cool. And they're also not just like providing stuff for the baby, but they're also trying to help these moms, like not just trying to give them a fish, but like teach them how to fish, right?
Hmm.
And like giving
Yeah.
them those resources and giving them those opportunities to change their life for
Hmm.
the better. And so it's cool that you guys are helping them with that in that way. But I am curious though, and I feel like I should ask the question about what does it look like to be in this partnership program with them? How do you guys, determine, what organizations or nonprofits you guys allow into your guys' partnership programs?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. We came up with the process pretty easily because the number one question, who do you support and how can we receive funding from you guys? So it's like, okay, we'll put up a process of a simple partnership program. Any center can sign up. We also have expanded that to pro-life organizations. So we've had a couple like maternity homes reach out, just kind of like the holistic pro-life. It's like, yes, we want to financially support them
Mhm.
and what they're doing. We're primarily supporting and working with centers directly, but we've opened that up to pro-life specific organizations as well. And anyone can sign up on any of those organizations. We just vet them to make sure they're 100% pro-life and align with our beliefs that they
Mhm.
believe that things like life begins at conception. There's no justification or reason to have abortions in the country, and advocating for those. Most of them are like gospel centered as well. I think probably all of them are, and they have a Christian aspect to it, which is awesome. They get to share the gospel. So anyone can sign up. Anyone can receive funding. They just schedule a partnership month with us. That's a month we'll donate to them out of our fund, all the money we've raised and set aside. And yeah, they also can use it as like a fundraising tool where they get to promote the coffee, and 10% of every sale goes back to their organization directly. So it's a cool win-win where they're getting a donation. They can use it as a fundraising tool as well. But yeah, we try to sign up and work with as many as organizations as we can. We want to continue to support life all over the country.
No, that's awesome. And I definitely just felt like I had to ask that question because sometimes you just like see a generic statement. It's like, okay, let's go ahead and just
Yeah.
investigate that statement.
Hmm.
But there's something else that I was kind of thinking about as you were talking, because we have some amazing conservatives that do so much work in the United States, and so I don't want
Hmm.
to take away from that. But I know that there's a lot of conservatives that feel very discouraged, where they just feel like they are going up against a monster that they can never defeat. And
Yeah.
so you have someone like you, and you have an entrepreneurship mind. So that's just a talent that you have, which is awesome. But you literally started from a single idea, and then now you've built this entire coffee company, and it's not like you have this extensive knowledge in coffee when you started, right?
No,
You
I
kind
did
of
not.
started at you kind of started at nothing, knowledge wise. And so I guess my question then is, how would you encourage conservatives and those that have an entrepreneurial mind to like to get involved in the movement? Because clearly you did, and you filled a really big void in the market. So not only were you helping a cause, but you're also being really smart on a business level as well. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think I've learned a few things that I would always like to share and encourage you. One is get started, and two is just keep it simple. Like getting started is, if you have an idea, go for it. For us is like, hey, I have this idea for a pro life coffee company. Let's get started and try something. So I spent 2 months creating a logo and been trying to build a website myself, and it wasn't great. It didn't look good, and that's okay. But we got started. Like that was the important thing. And keep it
Mhm.
simple. I don't, right now we have, like 10 different options you can buy of different coffees on our website. When I started, we had
Can you
two.
pull those up,
So,
Connor?
Yeah, I
um,
can pull those up.
yeah, so it's like just keep it simple. We had a medium roast and a dark roast when we got started, and that was it. And that was good because that was a good place to start, and it was simple. Now we have, entire, kind of suite of coffees. We're relaunching with even more coffees later this year in July. Gonna have K cups. We have a whole apparel line now. which is really cool. So this was never in the cards, day one, and that's okay. You can't see the big picture from the day one, but you can see what's in front of you, and that's important to just take those next steps. So that's what I would like to encourage everyone with, is like, if you have an idea, just get started, and keep it simple.
Yeah. Nope. I think that is great. You have to take one step at a time. And I have to also ask you, which blend do you like the best out of all these? What would you recommend to our viewers?
So I have literally drink it all. So that's number one. But our micro lot limited edition is one of the things we added recently, and it's really amazing. It's like for coffee snobs. It's more money. It's a super highly, quality.
It sounds kind of fancy.
Yeah, it is. It's how it's processed. It's called natural processing. How the coffee is processed, and it's amazing. Like, it tastes really good. It's the best coffee we offer. But I drink it all. We don't have bad coffee. So
of course not. Of course not.
Gone through it all. But yeah, that's definitely a treat.
Yeah. Okay. I had to ask because we have to. And then I do have another question. I have too many.
Sure.
Connor, you can say things. But have you gotten any sort of like opposition for what you guys have done on the pro-choice-ish side of things?
I think the most we get is like the negative comments on Facebook ads, like, some pretty vulgar things are said, and some hate emails, but nothing like outside of that. Most is overwhelming support. Like, people are like, I'm sharing this with my friends, our Bible study, our women's group, our, men's event. We're drinking this at our church. It's like a very positive thing that people have come around and supported of us, which I think that means we're kind of in the right space and, area here, that we're able to provide a really cool branding and messaging during this time. And the pro-life issue, I mean, we launched the year Roe v. Wade's overturned. How cool is that? Just the timing and all of it. So
that's awesome. Connor?
Yeah. Any future plans for coffee shops?
I think that's something we'd love to have one day. So we're in the Northern Virginia area, DC base. So it's kind of the, just outside the capital here. I think it'd be great to have a flagship coffee shop, because, here's, where the epicenter of, our laws are made, where culture is kind of fought over. And I mean, you have a lot of the big nonprofits and pro-life organizations here. So I think it'd be a cool location to have a 7 weeks coffee shop. Because we want to make a stand in culture, right? We want to be a voice for the unborn, and we're not just a coffee company. We're an advocacy organization for the pro-life issue that needs to be, talked about and discussed and not backed away. I think the major thing that we're seeing right now in conservative politics is people try to back away from this issue and play defensive. But I think we have a winning issue. I think we have a, the foundation of a healthy society is the protection of the unborn. There's, nothing more important than that. So if we're not advocating and fighting for that, right here at our nation's capital, we're missing out. So for us, that might be having a big coffee shop and where people could see what we stand for.
That
sounds definitely
awesome.
Opening up to some hate there.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you do the coffee. That's okay though. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, well, you're close enough. We'd definitely have to come up for a visit if you guys ended up opening a shop. So certainly keep us in the loop on that.
Absolutely.
And do y'all do like subscriptions, kind of like Black Rifle does, or no?
Yeah, we do. It's called the Heartbeat Club. So subscribe and save. You'll save 7% of every order. We'll have some new subscription. We're relaunching our whole subscription program next month. So we'll have some cool offers with that. But you'll save on every order. We kind of say, hey, we're just asking for a simple switch of your coffee supplier. Come use us, set up a coffee subscription. You'll get a better product than you're drinking now, and you'll support a center every month. So I think it's a pretty cool, offer. And you can know every time you drink a cup of coffee through us, you'll be helping save lives, quite literally.
Yeah, and it tastes good too. I can confirm it tastes good. It is worth the money. And one thing too, I'm just kind of pointing out, is that coffee always makes a great Christmas gift. So, and I know at least last year for me, like especially for my manager and I, we were trying to find, okay, how can we use conservative brands instead of giving to a bunch of different chains. And I think that this is a great way to do that. So for people like me that think about Christmas in May, there you go. But Anton, we're so happy that you've taken the time to talk us through this and to talk about the quality of your product. We think that our viewers should definitely try it if they're coffee drinkers. Where would be the best place for people to find you guys and have updates about what y'all are up to?
Yeah, no, happy to chat, and thank you so much for letting me share a little bit. But to find out more, 7weekscoffee.com, all spelled out, 7 Weeks Coffee. Just type it into Google, will come right up. Yeah, you can order online, set up a subscription there, and sign up for our email list, which we like to update on the issues going on outside of, coffee promotion and things we're doing just as a company. But, what's going on in the pro-life movement, you can find out more. We like to talk about the issues because, the issues matter. We can't win hearts and minds unless we, try to win hearts and minds.
Yeah. Nope. You're on point there. Connor, anything more from you?
No, I don't think so. Anton, I think you did a fantastic job building this from the ground up. And like I've said, from the origin of the coffee to its endpoint, once it gets in people's cups, I think you thought this over well. I love the transparency that you've worked into the business that we don't see a lot of, I think, in conservative and liberal companies. So I think that's a fantastic marketing for your customers. They can see everything. They know where their money ends up and who it's supporting.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
No, that's fantastic. I hope nothing for the best for you and the company and growing and getting that coffee shop.
That'd be awesome one day. You guys would definitely come by.
Yes, for sure. And we'll look. We're looking out for like a little mini documentary. We're gonna wait for it
I'd love to.
your guys' roasters at some point. So you'll have to, if that happens, you'll have to keep us in the loop.
Absolutely.
But thanks, Anton, for coming on. And I think that's all we've got for today. You can, for Resident Skeptics, you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the places. And we'll also make sure to link all of 7 Weeks social media as well, so that you can follow them and stay up to date on what they're up to. But until then, that's it. That's all I've got.
All right. Thanks again, Anton. Thanks for coming on.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much.